All right. Perfect. All right. Hello, this is week 7 of the 13-week fiscal program for American Prisoners of War. You have myself, Chief Biko. Today we have Chief Alligator as well as Chief Blackcoat. And here, as always, we focus more so on that first letter in the acronym APOW, which is American. Starting off, we will have Chief Blackcoat with the 12 steps. Go ahead and share my screen.
For some reason, they got you live 2 times on here.
Correct. I'm gonna have to change something. I just made myself the host, so we should be good now.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with the 12 steps. 13-week practical program of action for each American prisoner of war. Number 1, learn about the state or estates your family originated from. Number 2, who established those estates. Number 3, what tribe and confederacy had jurisdiction over that area prior to the European. Number 4, ask all nonprofit organizations you attend what's your position on reparations. Number 5, they either support it or they don't. No support, no money. However, if they support it, then children and adults need weekly classes free of charge about steps 1, 2, and 3. In addition, field trips to APOW, American Prisoner of War, landmarks in that city, counties, and state are needed. Don't support European holidays for the remainder of the 13-week time frame. Avoid spending money with any small businesses that don't hire your people, gas stations, nail salons, subways, corner stores, etc. Number 8, all businesses need operating cash to spend money with American business. Number 9, all other groups rely on our energy and operating cash to survive. Set the trends of making other groups follow our lead and support our clubs, service products, and entertainment. Number 10, the U.S. government is bankrupt. The Federal Reserve prints money, i.e. quantitative easing. It also burns money, i.e. quantitative tightening. The U.S. dollar hasn't been backed by gold since Richard Nixon in 1971, the Gold Standard Act. The government operates off full faith of its citizens to pay debts and taxes. American prisoners of war no longer have faith in the U.S. government. This is why financial support will be altered, stopped, and redirected. Step 11, teach your children 1 hour a day about their history on this land. Have them learn about an American inventor. Have them know about our heroes. They should do that. They should know the European that conquered the state you live in. They should know the nation of people prior to the European invasion militarily and culturally. Number 12, practicing these steps will educate us on the land we're claiming America and attaches us to the history and laws of the U.S. government. Each state American prisoner of war live in should have steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised via social media, radio, newspaper. This in 13-week, 1 fiscal quarter will bring us together for our common cause.
All right, thank you there, Chief Blackcoat. I definitely want to kind of sit on this for a minute. Just kind of, which step stuck out to you, whether in the reading or just this week in general.
Just in that moment, reading all 12 of those steps again, I'm going to say that very last step, having those steps 1, 2, and 3 advertised, in your homes, anywhere that it can always be visually seen in order to actually start practicing these steps. So just having that information in the home, advertised, kind of just brainwashing yourself or just retraining the mind to understand what's going on and how to move forward. So I'll definitely say that the very last step of having it advertised stuck out today.
Got you. It's definitely probably be number 10 for me. Again, just kind of understanding that there is no money within the system. And that just really hit home to me by doing some, reading in a separate field I'm trying to, educate myself on. And it just really highlighted exactly the 12 steps pretty much that we do. I'll just read a quick little excerpt from, I'm not sure if you all can see, maybe a little blurry. Let me see if I can, my screen.
Rich Dad.
I'm blurred. But basically, it's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. And in it, exactly like said before, explains exactly how we get out of this situation in regards to not having any faith in it. He says basically, let me see here, that that is why most money today is known as fiat money, which is money that cannot be converted to something tangible like gold or silver. The money is only as good as long as people have confidence in the government backing it. The other definition for fiat is a dictatorial order or decree given by a person or group having complete authority. Today, much of the global economy is based on debt and confidence. As long as we all keep holding hands and no one breaks ranks, everything will be fine. And the word fine is the acronym, or is my acronym, for feeling insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So he basically just explained right there. If our group of people, one, stops having faith in this government and stops having faith or understands that this dollar is backed by nothing but our faith, then we can really get out of this situation. And it kind of just really highlighted what happened during the early stages of the pandemic. A lot of stocks were crashing, you know, a lot of people a lot of countries had their eyes on the United States because they're like, okay, what's going on now? I know Trump done shut down the government, but everything's tanking. A lot of money ain't moving how it's supposed to be. And then came with the killings of shit. It seemed like it was a killing every month. Started off with AHMAD AUBURY, then we got Breonna Taylor, then of course George Floyd, and then once everybody's out in the streets, nobody's spending money. That's when we had to focus on the United States. They're like, okay, what are the Americans going to do? Are they no longer having faith in this government? Because if so, we need to start converting our stuff to something else. We're not going to be using the US dollar if their own citizens aren't having faith in it. So just kind of wanted to highlight that because it really stuck out to me and kind of really hit home to me in regards to that step 10, that again, people, this government is backed by strictly the faith of its citizens, strictly the faith of its citizens.
Change the whole Staples Center into crypto.
Like just that in itself is like, okay, what's really going on? We trying to move into another dimension, another derivative of what we call money. But this week's inventor is going to be Shelby J. Davidson. Mr. Davidson was actually born, let me go back to my readings, actually born May 10th. So his birthday actually just passed 5 days ago. So definitely shout out to the ancestor. So May 10th rather, 1868, passed away December 7th, 1930. And he was basically known for this paper rewind mechanism. They use this in the post office to pretty much just sort through different, to easily sort through material when you're doing like clerical work, to easily get to certain files. So he was the creator of that, which made it 10 times easier on the employees. Now I'll try to highlight or show some of these devices that he had. Let's see here. I'll keep moving if I click it. But as you can see, it's definitely a very smart and very had a lot of ingenuity in regards to just creating this this small device, but very technical in a lot of its tools. So it's
a lot of patents.
Yeah, definitely a lot of patents. Definitely a lot of patents. This was one of them that really stood out to me. Patent date is, what is that? April 14th, 1908. So April 14th, 1908, and the patent number is 884721. As you can see, he definitely created this later on in his life, but definitely is something that was a great need for them, and as far as his profession, as far as his profession there. So again, just another example of, our people's ingenuity, creativity, resourcefulness, being able to take, minute things and be like, hey, let's create something that's going to make our lives easier, So we were never one of these, slow type of people. We always were creative and always coming up with these things that led to major industries. I definitely wanted to highlight that brother, and that's brother Shelby J. Davidson. And next we will have Chief Blackcoat with the reading of the quote for this week. And did you need me to share my screen?
Please.
Right.
Let's go to quote number 1, please.
One.
So this week's quote is going to be quote number 1. Philosophers have long conceded, however, that every man has 2 educators, that which is given him and the other which is he gives himself. Of those 2 kinds, the latter is by far more desirable. So going with quote number 1, just because every week we come here and we do these classes just to kind of course, get the information out, but it's also, us educating ourselves, making sure we're not stuck in the European institution of that's what truth is, or that's what history or knowledge is, and actually just stepping to the side, seeing other, brilliant people, philosophers, their ideas. Other than this school system I learned, who else was out here thinking, and, how do they feel about certain things? So definitely quote 1, just always doing more research, never just, bunkering down on something somebody told you, doing just a little bit more research so things become more clear. A lot of people are confused today about, things that happen, but it's because we really don't honestly know what's going on, on a full spectrum. So coming here every week on Sunday, getting an hour in, or just educating ourselves, and that's pretty much quote 1 for me this week.
Excellent quote. Excellent quote. It just kind of just piggybacks right off of, what I was just saying earlier, pretty much, just being able to, educate ourselves without having it being, something assigned to us, that having that discipline to, okay, let me learn some more things about, this system that we're in, or other systems, because, it's whether we like it or not, we're in this game. So why not, understand and learn the rules to this game?
Correct.
Right. Be in it, let's learn the rules to it, and let's be the best at it until we can
Correct.
get the hell up out of this game. So definitely great quote for this week. And I'll let you go ahead and continue with the legal definitions and historical points.
Yep. So legal definitions: American, indigenous to America, descendants, one who follows in the bloodline of an ancestor, either linearly or collaterally. Number 3, slavery, a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, fortune, and liberty of another. 4, prisoner of war, POW, person usually a soldier who was captured by or surrenders to the enemy in wartime. 5, school, an institution at which instruction is given in a particular discipline. And number 6, education, an enlightening experience. I always like the education definition, an enlightening experience. Maroon historical points: was a person escaping slavery, seeking freedom, or breaking the law. Providing unity and a strong defense came first. Maroon leaders were first and foremost military leaders. Maroons established guerrilla warfare, planting sharp sticks in thick grass. Maroons knew their European enemy languages, defense, and plans.
Thank you again, there, Chief Blackcoat. I'll go ahead and jump into the Constitution before we continue into the 1866 Indian Treaty. Share my screen again. And of course, as always, we want to jump into Article 1, Section 10, which just coincides with pretty much our Step 10 that we read, which just kind of highlights that this Constitution and this government no longer is abiding by its Constitution, its foundation in which this government is built upon. So as we read here, section 10, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So again, nothing that you would be indebted to, you're actually able to pay off, because we're no longer dealing in gold and silver, and we're no longer even dealing in a derivative of it since 1971. Again, the Gold Standard Act removed the actual money from the system. So we no longer pay off debts, because again, we're not using constitutional money, which is gold and silver. So the only thing that we can actually do is discharge a debt, or have something erased. So that's how you come about, having perpetual taxes on your home, even though you've paid off your mortgage. So just kind of understanding that and understanding that system, understanding this system, it's like, okay, so if they not even playing by their own rules, then why are we? So again, just gotta ask yourself the question: if we're gonna play this game, why not understand the rules of this game and be the best at it? Or we could just stop playing this game in totality, which I would think that would be the more appropriate route, since again, there is no money within the system anymore. Next, going to go to Article 6. And in Article 6, we understand the supreme law of the land, or as it's supposed to be understood to us within this Constitution. So again, here it says, this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. So again, this Constitution is clearly stating that the treaty is the supreme law of the land. Although what we've read, I want to say 2 weeks ago, in regards to, the church and its missionaries or its delegates being able to supersede, what was actually written within that Indian treaty in regards to them not being able to be told to, leave from a certain area, like they had to be within those respective nations being the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. So definitely just wanted to highlight that. And last but not least, if we go to Article 2, Section 2, we list off the powers of the president, also known as the commander-in-chief. And it reads, the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of several states. So again, just mirrors exactly what the news that kind of broke, I believe maybe, I'm not sure if it was today or yesterday. I want to say it's maybe yesterday, in regards to the Buffalo killings of, I believe it was 9 of our people, 9 Americans. So again, that person, they clearly described what he had on: military gear, bulletproof vest, helmet, Army fatigues, several weapons on him. So it's like, okay, one, who is backing this person, meaning which militia is backing this person? 2, how did they, arrive to this location? I believe I saw a YouTube video in which another American, like yourselves and myself, speaking to this gentleman and saying that he was out of town. He was just visiting the countryside. So he obviously came or was sent on a mission to this particular area to do this deed. Was able to get arrested, no scratches. Again, multiple weapons. Already had killed 11 people, multiple weapons on him, no scratches on this man. Was able to take off all of his gear, take off his weapons, hands behind his back, be arrested, stood up, protocol. So again, just understanding this system, guys, that we're currently under, and that who has the power of each, let's say, each armed force. Again, the Army, Navy, and of the militia. The president has that power. So just kind of keep that in mind as we continue to, of course, unveil this system and continue to dive deep into these treaties. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Chief Black Coat, I think we stopped off on Article 30. That sound about right.
Let me check our notes real quick, my bad. But it should be 30. Double check. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. 30 there. So I'll go ahead and pick up on Article 31 here. Actually, make this a little bigger. All right, Article 31. And whereas some time must necessarily elapse before the surveys, maps, and selections herein provided for can be completed, so as to permit the said Kansas Americans to make their selections in their order, in which time the United States may desire to remove the said Americans from their present abiding places. It is hereby agreed that the said Americans may at once come into the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, settling themselves temporarily as citizens of the said nations, respectively, on such lands as suits them and is not already occupied. So they may pretty much become, I guess you could say, second-class citizens underneath these Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, respectively. We do know 3/4, I believe, is going to the Choctaw Nation, and 1/4 of the Kansas Americans would be the, I guess, represented as Chickasaws, and that they are able to, again, occupy any land that suits them as long as it is not already occupied. And of course, in the early articles, we already saw how they were pretty much boxing in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations already. So just understanding that and understanding how you can see it becomes a fight over land, how this can just continue to come to a boiling point in regards to these different groups of people. Again, this is another group that just was introduced in last week's readings, the Kansas Americans. So now we have the Kansas Americans, Choctaw, Chickasaw, the African descent slaves, the European peasants, as well as some Negroes, some Americans that they aren't classifying as their respective tribes. So just understanding, yeah, this is definitely going to be an issue moving forward, or can be definitely one. Article 32, at the expiration of 2 years or sooner, if the President of the United States shall so direct, from the completion of the surveys and maps aforesaid, the officers of the land offices aforesaid shall deliver to the executive departments of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations respectively all such documents as may be necessary to elucidate and the land title as selected according to this treaty. The forward copies thereof with the field notes, records, and other papers pertaining to said titles to the Commissioner of the General Land Office, and thereafter grants of land and patents therefore shall be issued in such manner as the legislative authorities of said nations may provide for all the unselected portions of the Choctaw and Chickasaw districts, as defined by the Treaty of June 22nd, 1855. So basically here, they basically have to go through this protocol here in regards to once, I guess, the Kansas Indians or Kansas Americans rather select their land. They're going to let some time go by in regards to, of course, the surveys and the maps and their selection. And then that information will then go to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations respectively, as far as those documents. And those documents will entail the land titles selected, or land titles settled. And then as far as any other records that pretty much the land office is going to have as well. So again, just showing that documentation, showing the accounting of pretty much everything, not only in regards to the different peoples, but in regards to the land and who will pretty much have legal right to that land. Again, legal right, not lawful right, because already Choctaw and Chickasaw are of this land. So we understand that they're now underneath this United States umbrella. So it's no longer lawful, right? Since they've signed on to this treaty, it's now the legal right to this land. Also, that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. Any thoughts on that there, Chief Blackcoat?
Yeah, just was going to point out the fact that again, all surveys map out of the land that's going into the executive department of the Choctaw Chickasaw Nation. So pretty much the information being held again through the U.S. through their structure, and the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nations are pretty much abiding or forming their I would say government kind of in the structure of the U.S. government. So it's just seeing the structure being set up on these Indian territories or on these lands that are now being found by the European.
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. So it almost makes it seem like it's no way that these Choctaw and Chickasaw chiefs and their, I guess you could say, tribal court agreed to this, this here, because it's like, why would they want to mirror anything that the United States has? Like you said, they have a whole executive department now, just like their, I guess you could say, their father or mother company. So it's like just them being a derivative of the United States. So they're just making the Chickasaw and Choctaw tribes mirror exactly what they have. That way they can understand the system better and be able to dictate to the Chickasaw and Choctaw nations rather than they dictate to them. So definitely a great point out there. I'll go ahead and start on Article 33. All land selected as herein provided shall thereafter be held in severalty by the respective parties, and the unselected land shall be the common property of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations in their corporate capacities, subject to the joint control of their legislative authorities. But this is definitely interesting, and it just highlights again that corporate fiction, their corporate capacity. So they're clearly identifying them as a straw man, or again corporate fiction, as a business. But this is definitely interesting here, being like another branch from the parent company, like you just stated there, Chief Blackcoat. So yeah, just clearly highlights that these nations are now going to be mirrors up there, I guess you could say, God in the United States government, just legit mirrors of their hierarchy at this point.
And just the language being used, again, our ancestors, we spoke on it last week with Chief Alligator. This isn't how we governed ourselves. Like, this is total new, just complete new information. Yeah. So to be sitting here talking about corporate capacities and legislative authorities, and these treaties, I'm always just in my mindset of what the Americans, when the American actually comes across this information, which is probably months and months down the line, what are they thinking? And like, even if they get to come across this type of information, like, okay, so why is it operating like this? Oh, the 1866 Indian Treaty. When they see these things, these words again, like corporate capacities, there's no understanding.
No understanding. And like you said, I'm pretty sure that a lot of our, brethren and family west of the Mississippi within these, especially within these nations, the Choctaw and Chickasaw, they're like, what the fuck is this? How could y'all ever go for this?
Right.
But again, we weren't speaking that same language.
Correct.
We weren't speaking that language in regards
Probably
to
thought we were getting something good and got something bad. Just understanding the European and how they just lie about everything.
Say one thing but mean another.
There it is.
Yep. Definitely, this definitely highlights that. I'll go ahead and read 34, then I'll let you pick up on 35. Article 34, should any Choctaw or Chickasaw be prevented from selecting for him or herself during the 90 days aforesaid, the failure to do so shall not authorize another to select the quarter section containing his improvements, but he may at any time make his selection thereof subject to having his boundaries made to conform to legal divisions as aforesaid. So it looks like here that if any of the Choctaw or Chickasaw tribesmen does not select their specific or a specific quarter section with their improvements, that nobody else can kind of come in and take that selection over without, again, I'm guessing what is that? Without that being cleared from that particular tribesman.
Yeah, so sounds like he had 90 days to make their selection.
Mhm.
And if the 90 days surpasses, then subject to having his boundaries made to conform to legal divisions as aforesaid. So yeah, basically just their quarter sections, 90 days, pretty much giving them timelines on the improvements. That's what I'm taking from that one.
He may at any time make his selection thereof, subject to having his boundaries made to conform to legal divisions as aforesaid. So again, even with that, any improvements, they still want to make sure that it's within those legal boundaries. So making sure like, hey, you're not getting this additional land or anything like that, because we legally just assigned you again a quarter section. So even if your improvements kind of laying off outside of that quarter section,
Right.
that won't be considered yours. But definitely another one here. So okay.
I got you. Article 34. Should any Choctaw Chickasaw be prevented from selecting for him or herself during the 90 days aforesaid?
I think we were 35.
35, my bad. So Article 35, should the selections aforesaid not be made for the transfer of the land records to the executive authorities of the said nations, respectively, they shall be made according to such regulations as the legislative authorities of the two nations, respectively, may prescribe, to the end that full justice and equity may be done to the citizens of the respective territories. I'll read that one more time. Should the selections aforesaid not be made before the transfer of the land records. So this is before selections are being made, before the land records are being transferred to the executive authorities of the said nations, respectively. They shall be made according to such regulations as the legislative authorities of the two nations, respectively, may prescribe, to the end that full justice and equity may be done to the citizens of the respective territories. So it's kind of sounding like they have to abide by the already whatever's already coming out as far as the from the executive or the legislative. They have to still respect or honor the authorities.
Yeah, that's what it's kind of sounding like after that 90-day period. Again, if nothing is selected in regards to before, in regards to land prior to or before that transfer of land records to that executive authority, then the regulations or pretty much the laws written up by that legislative authority is going to, I guess, take be the thing that they need to abide by, be the requirements that they need to abide by.
Right, and that's why like reading these articles, their pen game is so, and this type of writing is so pure in their way because they're speaking in their language, understanding exactly what they're talking about, and we're trying to like break this mess down. So I can only understand the frustration our ancestors had.
That's,
not even reading this part, but just trying to do what they're saying. Like, wait, what?
I mean, who do I go to? What branch?
Right, just a world of confusion. Well, we can go ahead and move to Article 36. Should any land that has been selected under the provisions of this treaty be abandoned and left uncultivated for the space of 7 years by the party selecting the same, or his or hers, except in the case of infant under the age of 21 years, or married women or persons non-compos mentis. The legislative authorities of the nation where such land lies may either rent the same for the benefit of those interested or dispose of the same otherwise for their benefit, and may pass all laws necessary to give effect to their provisions. So now we're here talking about land being selected to be under provision of this treaty be abandoned. So if the land is abandoned and left uncultivated for the space of 7 years by the party selecting the same. So now we're talking about uncultivated or unclaimed land.
For the space of 7 years.
May pass all laws necessary. So who gets to pick this land up? That's what I want to break it down.
For his ears, except in the case of infants under the age 21, married, a person is non-compos mentis. That's basically insane individuals and not of, a stable mind. The legislative authorities of the nations for such land lies may either rent the same. So basically, if there's nobody to claim that land, the legislative authority may either rent out that land for the interest of these who would it be? These elected parties or heirs or infant or unmarried women for their best interest, or they may sell it, or they may sell it for their best interest. But again, we know that that really wouldn't be for their best.
Right. Low ball them or high ball them, however that worked out.
Correct.
But that's the part I was trying to look for. Who's going to actually give the land out and who can actually claim it? But I think you caught it right there in the bottom section. The legislative authorities of the nation where such land lies may either rent the same for the benefit of those interested or dispose of the same otherwise for their benefit. So we're on with Article 37. In consideration of selection hereinbefore accorded to certain Indians of their other than the Choctaw and Chickasaw, the United States agreed to pay the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations out of the funds of Indians removing into said nations respectively under the provisions of this treaty, such sum as may be fixed by the legislators of said nations, not exceeding $1 per acre, to be divided between the said nations in the proportion of the fourth to the Chickasaw Nation and 3/4 to the Choctaw Nation, with the understanding that at the expiration of 12 months, the actual number of said immigrant Indians shall be ascertained, and the amount paid that may be actually due at the rates aforesaid, and should still further immigration takes place from among said Kansas Indians, still further payment shall be made accordingly from time to time. So yeah, they love having, I won't call them right on the sentences, but they definitely just
you just got to chop it up.
Wordplay. So yeah, we can just break it down a little bit. So in consideration of the hereinbefore, according to the certain Indians of the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation, the United States agreed to pay the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations out of the funds of Indians removing into said nations respectively under the provisions of this treaty. So that first part right there, again, the United States to pay the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations out of the funds of Indians. So we're talking about, we understand the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation, and now we're talking about another group of Americans that are coming into the land or leaving out of the land, but the funds will be still paid from both nations. So respectively under the provisions of this treaty, and then such sum as may be fixed by the legislators of said nations not exceeding $1 per acre. So they're going to receive $1 per acre to be divided between the said nations in the proportion of 1/4 of the Chickasaw and 3/4 of the Choctaw nations. So back to how much land is already allocated to both these nations. with the understanding that there's an expiration of 12 months, the actual number of said immigrating nations or immigrating Indians shall be ascertained, and the amount paid by that actually due at the rate aforesaid and will still be furthered. Gotta scroll back down a little bit. Immigration takes place among said Kansas Indians. Still further payment shall be made accordingly from time to time. That from time to time was kind of throwing me out. Like, what are we talking about from time to time?
Yeah, that's not it's pretty broad. Like it's not specific. So basically, be like, yeah, we can pay you guys whenever we want to, or
from time to time.
Yeah,
Right.
Everything else is pretty specific. You see 12-month period, $1 per acre. But definitely is interesting here. One thing that definitely stood out to me was this: United States agreed to pay to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations out of the funds of Indians from moving into said nation respectively. So, like you said, they're taking these funds out of the Kansas Indians, and then that kind of goes back to, if that is the case, it kind of goes back to what Chief Alligator had stated, how they like to pretty much stun on us in regards to the sports teams like the Kansas City Royals or Kansas City Chiefs. Like, could these people have been royalty? Could have been the gatekeepers of gold, or have been of royal ilk? And it kind of rhymes in regards to this here, in regards to, again, out of the funds of Americans removing into said nation respectively.
I'm trying to understand that part. Like, the United States agreed to pay to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations out of the funds of Americans removing into said nations. Just they're just amazing with how they write this stuff up.
Yeah, it's like instead of Americans moving into said nations, they said removing into.
You feel me?
Removing into, like that's like a contradiction in itself.
Removing into said nations. So being removed.
They were into these now Choctaw and Chickasaw nations. And again, we see the what is this? 1/4 goes to Chickasaw nations and 3/4 to the Choctaw nations. Definitely want to see if they ever unveil why this split of 1/4 and 3/4.
That's so important. Right. All right, I'll jump on Article 38.
White person.
Wow. Every white person who, having married a Choctaw or Chickasaw, resides in the said Choctaw or Chickasaw nation. So every white person who, having married a Choctaw or Chickasaw, resides in that Choctaw or Chickasaw nation, or who has been adopted by the legislative authorities, is to be deemed a member of the said nation. So if you married a Choctaw or Chickasaw, you live on the land, you live within the nation, or if you're adopted into it.
And that power is given to the legislative authorities of that land. So again, it almost seems like these different departments couldn't have been run by our group of people.
Sounds like they're just writing themselves into our nation or into our family's bloodline now.
That's
is to be deemed a member of the said nation and shall be subject to the laws of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations according to his domicile, and to prosecution of trial before their tribunals, and to punishment according to their law in all respects, as though he was a native Choctaw or Chickasaw.
Wow.
Into punishment according to their laws in all respect. Okay. So however Choctaw and Chickasaw nations handle crime, they fall up under that umbrella of trials and tribunals. Looks like Chief Alligator might have his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead there, Chief.
Yeah, I just wanted to be real brief, real quick on what Chief Blackcoat just read, not overlooking how powerful that statement was in that article, that European, what they're calling white people, how they can come from a whole nother landmass and just steal birthright through their legislative body. So they can get adopted, which means it's a legal process through the legislative body, which is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, how that process goes through the probate court. So we have to look at how that is still in alignment today. You got people coming over from different bodies of water, and they're stealing your birthright by being labeled Afro-American, minority. It's the same game. So you can see here how they blended how they basically, they made these peasants Americans through paperwork, but they can never be American by blood. That was a critical article in there, and I just wanted to just speak on that real quick, because what we're seeing is paper genocide right there in that article.
That just kind of highlights what was saying in that last one, that well, shoot, yeah, within this article, legislative authority, like that couldn't have been our people. There's no way. It's like, yeah, you're not of our bloodline, you're not of any American tribe bloodline, so we would never consider you to be an American. You know, that's definitely like you said, that Chief Alligator just highlights them writing themselves into being the American. Definitely interesting here. And I think even in regards to the punishment, I think in one of the earlier articles, maybe like first 10, I believe it stated something along the lines like their laws couldn't be contradict the laws of the United States. So even their punishment to say, hey, if somebody was caught stealing, we chop off your hand, if that was not something done by the United States, then they couldn't do that, even though it's saying here that all the prosecution tribunals and stuff should be, you know, respected or be in regards to that nation's judicial system. Do you want me to pick up on 39, or you continue?
I'll finish 39 and we will pick up next week on 40.
Okay, that'll work.
All right, Article 39. No person shall expose goods or other articles for sale as a trader without a permit of the legislative authorities of the nation he may propose to trade in. So no person shall expose goods or other articles for sales as a trader without a permit of the legislative authorities of the nation he may propose to trade in. So can't no trading unless you got this permit, but no license shall be required to authorize any member of the Choctaw or Chickasaw nations to trade in the Choctaw and Chickasaw country, who is authorized by the proper authority of the nation.
Go ahead and stop there. Who would be that proper authority of the nation? I think you had your hand up there too, Chief Alligator. You can go ahead and jump in.
And it sounds like you can also trade within your nation without the license or permit.
Yeah, can you read that a little bit clearer one more time? Because it sounds like, are you talking trade or treaty?
Trader.
Right, trader without a permit. So no person shall expose goods or other articles for sale as a trader without a permit of the legislative authorities of the nation he may propose to trade in. But no license shall be required to authorize any member of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations to trade in the Choctaw and Chickasaw country who is authorized by the proper authority of the nation.
Okay, so we're talking two separate things. I just wanted to be clear. When they're referring to articles, they're talking about the treaty. They're basically binding the legislative authority that you'll be deemed a traitor if you talk about the terms and conditions within the treaty. The second half of it talks about the actual tribes people of those different nations, where they're saying, you know, you can do your thing without any kind of license or whatever. But as far as a legislative body, yeah, you can't talk about what happened in this treaty with any other group of legislative bodies. That's what I wanted to be clear on, based on what you read.
Okay, yep, Chief Alligator, putting it in a more broad substances. Now we're thinking, local common trade, but we're talking about actual information on these treaties. So you can talk about it within the nation, but not without, or you gotta have this permit too.
Okay.
Right, which means they're gonna know. They're gonna know because they're watching you. Everything that y'all read today, I know I was handling some business, so I couldn't participate. But everything that y'all read today just basically says they're gonna account for everything that these people are doing, even the people that they've put as the management class, which is the legislative authority. Basically, they're gonna use them to do their dirty work. You're gonna take these peasants that we sent over from Europe, you're gonna adopt them into these nations, you're gonna make them what we know now as the American, and you're not gonna tell any other group of Americans on this land any of the articles in this treaty. That's divide and conquer. Because if another group doesn't know, hey, don't contract with these people, then that means that all these different tribes on this land have similar treaties with similar terms and conditions in them.
It's funny that you say that too, because it's almost like when you become an employee of them, then it's like, okay, you can't discuss your compensation with another employee. Something like that. That's what it kind of reads as when she said that no person shall expose goods or articles for sale as a trader. So you got to be, again, like you said, permitted to even do so by that legislative authority. Very interesting. Very interesting. Go ahead. Think me on this part here, that Chief Blackcoat, nor.
Yep, I'll finish y'all. Nor to authorize Choctaws or Chickasaws to sell flour, meal, meat, fruit, and other provisions, stocks, wagons, agriculture, implements, or tools bought from the United States into the said country. So now we're going into, the nitty gritty of trade and sale. And so nor to authorize Choctaw or Chickasaws to sell. So nor to authorize.
So yeah, so they can, and this is kind of what I thought it was talking about in the beginning as far as the like commerce, but yeah, they're clearly making a distinction between sell and trader. And trade information, nor can you sell goods outside of, without being permitted to by the legislative authority, unless you're of said respective nations. So yeah, you got to keep everything in-house. You can't
in-house. And I like how they pointed out provisions, seeing how constantly we're just updating things and improving on product or, anything to improve the land. So they're so detailed and like Chief Alligator said, they're documenting everything. Just everything's documented by this group. And then you also point out a big point, Chief Biko, about how other nations, or that's up under this umbrella now, the United States, have their own little thing going on. And then now down here in the Choctaw and Chickasaw, we're writing up this Indian treaty. So you can see the conflict coming in, whenever these nations do have to cross paths, because daddy, United States telling me one thing, I'm from Chickasaw and Choctaw, and then you got some Kansas Indians. So it's just a lot of confusion probably going on. Well, for sure going on right now.
Definitely. So we'll stop off here. Article 40 is where we'll pick up next week. But again, just a lot of good information. We're almost we're past the halfway point of this article. So probably I'd say by maybe June, 1st of June, we'll be in we done wrap this up, but definitely a lot of good information, and you can clearly see the divide and conquer technique used by the United States, especially in that last article we read. So that'll do for this week, and we will see you all next Sunday.
Hold on, let me share one more thing, Chief Biko, before you close it out.
Go ahead.
I just want to build on what y'all were talking about earlier in reference to the militiamen that went down there and killed over 10 people in one setting. And I got to speak on this because I had forecasted this back in 2019, prior to Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd It might have been around the Philando Castile murder or somewhere up in there. And I realized how we were being desensitized as a group of people through the media, where they got us complacent or used to Crump coming out, organizers coming out, mobilizing the people, having to walk around in circles on a curfew until it was time for them to go in the house once the armed military or police came out to basically let them know, okay, it's time for you to stop pouting and go in. The reason why this is important is because there was no coming back after George Floyd. And people may have heard that and thought that that was too deliberate, that was too violent. You may have anger issues, but I just keep it real. I try not to bullshit myself. Yeah, you can't come back from a crucifixion like that the world saw and not get anything changed by this government. So here we are 2 years later. 2 years to the day, the world was on fire. And now you got a militiaman that goes out, kills 10 people, has niggers scribbled on the assault rifle, and nobody's asking any of the questions that Chief Biko asked earlier. Who is he a part of? Who financed him? Why are you not investigating his social media to see who he's come in contact with? The reason for that is because it would expose the military occupation. This is a prime example of military occupation. How many times mass killers kill people and they always make it in custody? You get your brains blowed out from the back on a traffic stop. It's not rocket science. What we like to do is we like to stick our head in the sand and we like to act like it's not what it is, when that's exactly what it is. This man killed 10 people, injured 3 others, and he found his way in jail. The European last year killed all those Asians in Atlanta, found his way in jail.
Yep.
Dylan Roof found his way in jail. The police officer that executed the man last month blew the back of his brains out up there in Michigan. They didn't even release his name until 2 months later. What is it going to take for us to realize that all these people are a part of militia? They may join the police force, they may join the sheriff, they may join the FBI, but they're all down by law. This is not a coincidence. And I just wanted to just kind of just beat that drum right now, because a lot of us are going to get reactionary as if this is something new, and it's not.
Correct. But great point. All of those topics and yeah, all of those points you made are right on, spot on. Listed off 3 examples of the same thing. Again, open your eyes, people. Open your eyes. I mean, we do this every week, and we're able to pull parallels from what's going on in the real world to match exactly what we're reading. Whether it's, who has the power of the militia? The president. Like you just stated, the president has the power to summon the Army, Navy, and militia. Then who authorized that specific militia district to, hey, mission is go to Buffalo, lay some folks down. We're trying to, get this political agenda underway. It's not far-fetched. We just read exactly the protocols in that Constitution. So Chief Alligator stated, it's time to wake up, people. It's been time. So that we'll go ahead and close on there, and then we'll continue next week on Article 40 in the Indian Treaty, 1866.